Hi, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel, Politics with Sherry Jacobus. Thank you for subscribing. And if you're not a subscriber yet and you like what we do here, join in, subscribe, comment. I love it all. So I don't blow smoke up anybody's bloomers. And I think sometimes people think I'm a bit of a Debbie Downer. It's kind of hard not to be in this era of Trump. And I don't purposely go looking just for good news because I feel I have to pepper this with good news. But if there's good news or hopeful news, I'm going to share it. So this week on my podcast over on Patreon is the same name as this, Politics with Sherry Jacobus. That's where I interview newsmakers, strategists, lawmakers, reporters, all that, each week. This week's guest is Democratic strategist Rachel Bytkofer. She's one of my favorites. I love her book. I love the data and the polling that she presents. And in this week's podcast, it's like 5 podcasts all smushed into one because she covers so much ground. But we talked about the elections from earlier this month and what it means for the midterms. She predicted that it would be pretty much the blowout it was in New Jersey and Virginia. She predicted, I mean, some people are saying, we don't know, it could be close. She's that good. And she explains why. And it has to do with the party out of power and all that, but it's the bread and butter issues, it's the economy, and there are some Republicans that voted for Trump who, the things that we focus on in social media are not what maybe a lot of other voters focus on. And as Rachel noted, people don't even know who J.D. Vance is. They can't name their own senator, but they know if Trump is lying to them about the economy, they know what they're spending when they go to the grocery store. It's fascinating to cut to the good news. So I also wanted to share this. It's kind of related to that. Politico has this piece out. In a culture war backlash, Democrats sweep school boards. And I like this because we've been hearing the last couple of years how there's these different organizations, these far right-wing MAGA organizations trying to go in at the local level and take over school boards. They wanted, focus on transgender issues and basically hurting kids and being anti-vax and forcing religion and, all that kind of stuff. And so they've done this in a very organized fashion. I'm looking at this from Texas to Pennsylvania to Ohio. This time around, Democrats-backed candidates ran successful campaigns in some of the nation's largest school systems in political battlegrounds. Now, they emphasize test scores and bus safety over debates about which bathrooms transgender students use and banning books from school libraries. Remember all the stuff that MAGA just loves, the Moms for Liberty crowd, all of that. They have the MAGA idiots. They form these groups all the way to Freedom and Eagle and Patriot. They're nothing of the sort. It's just marketing. Democrats could learn from that. But this is something that really kind of flew under radar. So in Pennsylvania, Democrats flipped at least 24 school board seats. I think that's significant. And this is still an ongoing tally. And this is from Pipeline Fund, I guess, is a more of a progressive recruitment group. So this is under radar and enabled voters increasing weariness, is what Politico is saying, with the culture wars that helped the MAGA movement engineer school board takeovers and generate hyper-local interest in politics as the COVID-19 pandemic raged. So this was alarming. We saw this happening. It's like, oh my God, these Project 2025 people are going to be going out there locally. And when people aren't paying attention, they're going to take over the school boards. And then that's when they want to start getting books out of the library. That's when it gets ugly. And it gets ugly for the kids. And that's what's important about this. So this is what I love about this. Democrats on the national level have not got their act together. All right. There's some good news. They're finally doing some digital stuff that they should have been doing 5 years ago. And that's because of Rachel Bytkofer. I think she's getting in there and helping out with that. And she's like me. She's one of these people that constantly advocates this stuff, like I am, about the daily back-checking press briefings that Democrats should be having from the Capitol under the auspices of the congressional umbrella. And they simply aren't doing it. I guess, it would be rocket fuel for fundraising, frankly. And as Rachel points out, the functions of the DNC and the DCCC and all these different groups are all different. And it's more about party building. But again, donors don't necessarily know that. They want to see something happening, that they can see and eyeball and listen to on a regular basis. And again, a daily fact checking press briefing that would be live streaming and all the podcasts we picking it up. That would work a lot. So it's just insanity that it's not happening. But I love this quote by somebody named Leslie Guillemart, Guilmart, one of the newly elected members in Cypress Fairbanks. This is in Alaska. She said, folks just want their school boards to be boring again. I'm like, that is genius and is so true. I think people feel that way about politics in general. They don't want to have to wake up every morning worrying what the president is going to do next and how it's going to negatively impact their lives, their safety, their community, the world. But even MAGA voters are saying, hey, he told me my food prices, my grocery prices are down. He just learned the word grocery. That's your first clue, folks. When Trump was fascinated by the word groceries, which we've been using, my whole life, and I'm old as dirt, and he acts like it's this new term. It's like, no, it's new to you because you're a moron. So that's your first clue that maybe Trump isn't the guy to trust to lower food prices, particularly when he claims that tariffs are going to lower food prices, but then everything goes up. So now he says, well, we're going to lower food prices by getting rid of some of the tariffs that he put in place. Okay. So if it's so easy that even MAGA can understand when it's something that affects them directly, that's when Trump has a problem. People understand food prices. They understand that he lied. So this political article, which I urge you guys all to go take a look at, it was talking about, the issues animating the GOP takeover of school boards originated from grassroots organizations like Moms for Liberty, which was formed to oppose school closures and mask mandates for children during COVID. They're trying to control school boards around the country. Now, they were very public. It was like a national campaign for them. And, I admit, as a political strategist, I thought, okay, how are Democrats going to be able to combat this? Well, I don't think, we're reading about these different enclaves, these Democratic school boards. They're not just enclaves. There's big successes where Democrats and Democratic backed candidates were successful. And now they're taking the school boards back from these far right-wing MAGA nutcases. All right. And I was having this conversation with someone today. We're kind of back and forthing, the person who flagged this article for me. And I said, well, this is great, but is it because of some national strategy that Democrats did, which is kind of doubtful? Sorry to say it. I'm sorry. I'm not going to blow smoke up your bloomers. I just call it as I see it. You know that I'm very, very excited about the individual efforts of a lot of senators, individual House members, governors, but the national party, and now I should say congressional Democrats aren't doing anything in the Senate, especially. It's just not happening. So the successes are happening with the work being done by other people. Just think how great it would be if they actually got their act together and did more and really defined Trump on a day-to-day basis. But anyway, back to my point. If it was a national strategy that was just stealth and succeeded, yay, yay, do more of it. If it's not, and it was just something that happened organically with some nudging from some of these smaller groups who worked hard and had an impact, but it would be, I don't want to say a minimal impact, because if you have an impact, you can't say it's minimal, but one small group can only do so much on a national scale. So if that was done, then that makes me realize, okay, if we have to work around our national leadership in the Democratic Party, if that's what we have to do to save this country, then maybe we can do it. I'm not giving up. I'm absolutely livid that Chuck Schumer is not facilitating these daily fact-checking press briefings in the Capitol building, not press conferences, press briefings. There's a difference. In the Capitol building, paid for by the Democratic offices. Again, a high-profile person with gravitas and talent, like a Pete Buttigieg or somebody else, a super staffer like Elon Musk was to Trump, kind of above it. You're not just a press secretary. And think of the contrast between that person and Carolyn Levitt every day. Same news cycle, taking advantage of all the thousands of press right there in the Capitol building. They're all right there. If you move it to the DNC, it's no longer their beat. That's why I say in the Capitol building, there's a policy and steering committee that we don't know what they do. They could pay for it, facilitate it, be the ones that are officially hosting it, and then get Democratic offices, to assess them a few dollars each month to pay for it. No reason why it shouldn't be done. But if we have to work around them, again, I'm not giving up on that idea. I'm not letting them off the hook. But if we have to work around this, I think this what's laid out in this Politico article and what we saw earlier this month in these off-year elections, which went, well, Rachel Bythofer, she knew it was going to be good. She was telling everybody, guys, I'm seeing the numbers here. She's a data expert and extremely educated. Her book is fabulous. Anyway, she's telling them, as she says on my podcast this week, I knew that it was going to be big. And the rest of us were so pleasantly surprised, but we were surprised at how big the win was. She was not surprised. She was not surprised because she knew, because she dug into the numbers, a real deep dive. So this tells me, so we did well in really well in the elections earlier this month without some big, fantastic national strategy. And we are doing well with these school boards. When I read this article, I was very fascinated by it because I hadn't heard about it. So I'm glad Politico covered it. That tells me that all the small efforts, I'm a small effort out here on YouTube and with my podcast, and I'm on social media. What some of you folks are doing, groups that are joining together that are bigger than me, but not some huge thing. I think the big, huge organizations or super PACs, they tend to want to, maybe they're putting too much money in their own pockets instead of spending it to elect Democrats, the generational wealth guys, wink, wink. But I'm encouraged by this because it means that what we're doing matters. And I've talked about this before, how people who were never activists, like I said, friends of mine from high school, who I wouldn't even have known their political affiliation, when they saw that our media had failed us, that the guardrails were down, that the cavalry is not coming to save us, that we are the cavalry. Like I said, these people with no political experience are out there, not just voting, they're going to the protests in their hometowns. They're calling and writing their elected officials. They're getting involved. They're doing their part on Facebook. As we say, if you can just change the hearts and mind of one MAGA, and we all do it, we win. And I love that people are taking this seriously, because I think that's why we won earlier this month. I think that has a lot to do with this Politico article outlining that they're able to turn this travesty around with school boards, where these, moms for liberty and, all that sort of thing. We're taking over this whole big plan by MAGA nutcases to take over the school boards, and they were doing it, and Democrats have taken it back, even without Chuck Schumer helping. So it's these small efforts. Our individual efforts do matter. Decades ago, in my home state of Maryland, there was someone who was elected to Congress, where in the end it was like 4 votes. It was down to 40, and then it was 4, but it was like literally. So if you don't think your vote matters, whoa, but not just your vote, it's your activism. So I love the fact that our activism is now kind of mainstream. And that's what we have to do in our generation. As I've said before, and I said this to a friend that I was talking to today from my hometown, this is our time to do it. We have to. We didn't choose this fight, but it's the fight we're in. So pick up your weapon, folks, because it's working.